From the heart of South Asia to the crossroads of Central Asia, from the turbulent Middle East and North Africa to the power corridors of the West, where perspectives collide, narratives matter, and stories connect. This is Beyond Borders, and I am Omar Khalid Butt. During the hour that will follow, we'll try to decipher stories that matter to you in a world that will be without boundaries and borders. We'll be bringing you stories that are of importance not only to you, to us, but to the world altogether. We'll begin with our top stories of the day, or in our words, region lines. In the Middle East, France is joining the countries recognizing Palestinian state ahead of the United Nations General Assembly. The move will further pile pressure on Israel as it presses on with its military campaign in Gaza despite international outrage. Britain, Canada, Australia and Portugal have already formally recognized Palestine yesterday. President Donald Trump's move to curb skilled visas for foreigners adds a fresh blow to US-India ties. The US president's order rattles India's $280 billion tech services industry, threatening their business outsourcing models and putting thousands of jobs at risk. Recently, Trump also imposed a 50% tariff on imported Indian goods. In the US, President Donald Trump threatens Afghanistan with unspecified consequences unless it gives back control of the Bagram air base to Washington. This comes a day after the interim Afghan government rejected Trump's call to return the sprawling airbase. And in the Central Asian region, the historic Uzbek city of Bukhara has launched the Bukhara Biennial, transforming itself into a global cultural hub. The Biennale seeks to revitalize historic ties not just through preservation, but also by activating them as spaces for contemporary art and dialogue. And we'll begin with what is happening in the Middle East and North Africa, and of course the emphasis is on what is happening in Palestine. On the one hand, we've got all the brutalities, the genocide that is happening with the number of people being killed with every passing hour, the people who are being denied food, medicine and water. On the other hand, we've got countries that are slowly and steadily waking up to the reality and finally recognizing the state of Palestine. More in the following report.
In a major diplomatic turn, Western nations are breaking ranks and recognizing the state of Palestine. The UK, Australia, Canada, Portugal, France, and others are joining more than 140 UN members in what they call a long overdue step toward peace. In London, the Palestinian mission has been upgraded to a full embassy, hailed as historic justice after a century of denial. But in Tel Aviv, the mood is defiant. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu termed the recognition an absurd prize for what he called terrorism and signaled plans to expand illegal settlements in the occupied West Bank. Washington has gone further, blocking Palestinian leaders from attending the UN gathering and vetoing calls for a ceasefire in Gaza. This clash unfolds as Gaza bleeds. Nearly 2 years of war have left more than 65,000 Palestinians dead and hundreds of thousands displaced. Yet instead of easing, Israeli airstrikes continue to pound the enclave, with entire neighborhoods reduced to rubble. France and Saudi Arabia are spearheading a UN summit on the two-state solution, determined to rally global momentum. But Israel, shielded by the US, is digging in deeper. Now, the world is watching two opposing forces, a growing international chorus demanding Palestinian statehood, and an Israel aggression to block it.
Now, to discuss that in more detail, we've been joined by two guests. Let me introduce them to you one by one. In the studios, we've been joined by our very own, our senior analyst, Farhan Bukhari Sahab. Thank you very much, Farhan Sahab, to have joined us.
Good to be here.
And of course, this is the first time you're coming to our new set, our new show. So welcome to Beyond Borders. And online, we've been joined by Shazia Anwar Cheema Sahiba. She's a foreign affairs expert. Shazia, thank you very much to have joined us online as well. It's a pleasure to always talk to you. We'll begin with you, Farhan Sahab. The recognition of the Palestinian state by so many countries as we speak. There are important countries that in the past did not want to recognize Palestine for one reason or the other. United Kingdom, Portugal, Canada, Australia. Do you feel all of this recognition is somehow, somewhere, directly or indirectly, exposing the growing international isolation of Israel despite the backing of the US?
You know, the one thought that's gone through my mind the past few days since news came of the recognitions is whether this is Palestine's South Africa moment. Mid 1980s, in fact, the 80s, no one could have imagined the dismantling of apartheid in a decade or so later by the mid 1990s. 94, I believe, was the year when Mandela, the late Nelson Mandela, became the president of South Africa, of a free and democratic South Africa, replacing the terrible era of apartheid, and the stories, endless stories of what went on in South Africa in terms of killings, torture, and the rest of it were terrible. In the 80s, during my student days outside Pakistan, I attended some of these events, but I could have never imagined, even in my wildest dream, that this would change in just a few years. And I still remember talking to some of my friends from southern Africa, and generally the mood was one of, for want of a better word, complacency, in the sense that people did not really believe that apartheid could be dismantled, and some thought it wouldn't happen in their lifetimes, and yet it did. So the question is whether something similar is likely to happen.
Are you
in this
optimistic
case.
on that front? Could
I have
something
no
that
idea.
happen in that stride?
Look, I'm a very humble student of history, and therefore, having seen the apartheid, the dismantling of apartheid, I'm open to anything unexpected coming up. Of course, every situation is different. This is very different. Israel has the backing of the United States administration, though America itself is divided, especially students in America. So it's not exactly the same as South Africa, but South Africa was a terrible situation. And interestingly, just as a matter of history, the late Olof Palme, the Prime Minister of Sweden, who led the charge internationally against apartheid, and then was in the 80s was brutally murdered. That was, in my view, that was the kind of a tipping point for the internationals, because here was one leader of a Scandinavian country, and then the other Scandinavians also joined in, and the chorus expanded.
All right, the chorus expanded. Shazia, what will be the tipping point, when it comes to this very genocide, this very crime against humanity, these war crimes that we are slowly watching unfolding in front of our eyes since the last couple of months? What could be the tipping point? Is it the recognition of Palestine by all these countries? Is it the UNGA session that is going to happen, in which they are again going to talk about it? The session that is being held today with France and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia jointly co-hosting. What will be the tipping point?
Unfortunately, tipping point would be the memorials and the museum, and I'm very sad and I'm very upset to say that, because that's what history has taught us. That's what we have seen with the indigenous Australians and the Americans, and even the Nazi Holocaust. So the tipping point would be like couple of museums and memorials, and then we will have a wake up call, and then we will rescue the remaining few, and then we will create like our antipathy will suddenly transformed into empathy. But this recognition and this UNGA session is not going to be the tipping point. This recognition, we all know. I mean, how can the Western world, broader Western world, fool us? Uh, their societies are exploding within themselves, and they have to do something for rhetoric and optics. So we can take these rhetoric and optics in the peacetime. This could be a very good gesture, even though it's performative. It could be considered very positive. But we are witnessing a genocide. So, in our mindset, in our pain in which we are right now, these symbolic and these optics and rhetorical gestures means nothing. We have to stop the genocide, not tomorrow, not the day after tomorrow. We have to stop it today. And since past 2 days, there is no internet. There is complete blackout in the Gaza Strip, and the Israeli forces, they are inside the Gaza Strip, and God knows what's happening inside. So and the uh, so far UK is concerned, since couple of months, like it's like last month, a whistleblower broke a news that UK was spying Gaza Strip 24/7 to give the real-time intelligence to the Israelis. And then after this news, they outsources that to a private company. So they are all, there is no political will to solve this problem. They are recognizing it, and it's very humiliating to recognize Palestine. What's there to recognize? Palestine is a state which existed prior to Israel. So I don't see that this is the tipping point, but at, I feel that there has to be hope at the end of the tunnel, and that hope is I have been told that Mahmoud Abbas, who was denied the visa, look at the political will, who was denied the visa, the only political representation of the Palestinians, because Hamas are the terrorists, and the only political representation of the Palestinian has denied visa or diplomatic passport. So after 150 or 155 countries, they voted in favor of a virtual address. So Mahmoud Abbas is now going to address virtually in the United Nations General Assembly. So one hope is that he is going to ask for a peace reinforcement forces, and he's demanding this to the United Nations. And according to the Charter of the United Nations has to allow that. And in that case, if China and Russia willingly, with the help of like Pakistan and other Gulf countries, if they create a pact and then they reinforce, like they enforce peace, and then they reinforce this idea that there has to be some sort of Palestinian state, because now there are 800,000 settlers. So if
All
we
right,
are
let's
thinking
talk about
about
the
a
Palestinian
Palestinian
state.
state, we
I'd
don't
like your
have
Shazia, I'd like your point of view as far as the Palestinian state and the two-state solution is concerned. Israel completely denies the very existence of a two-state solution. Is living in a fool's paradise when it comes to the two-state solution. Many countries are slowly and steadily now waking up to it. On the other hand, we've also got Israel's Netanyahu, who says he's going to take actions against those countries who are recognizing even the state of Palestine. All right. With the backing of the US that we've seen in different UNGA or UNSC resolutions, how far do you feel the US is going to go in backing Israel in its genocidal attempts or war crimes?
I have another news which I was about to tell you, and this is rightly connected to your second point, and that is a very good point. There is another news in the market that Trump is going to meet Pakistan, Indonesia, UAE, and Turkey and Saudi Arabia in a separate meeting. So, if Mahmoud Abbas is asked for the peace enforcement forces and all the majority of the countries vote for that, then there could be a solution. We can see a solution in that. And the other thing is that these six going to sit. I hope that they are going in the Trump year, and things finally may start making sense to the Trump, that he is not only losing his own MAGA base inside the USA, but he is, as a whole, he is collaborating with an apartheid state. No matter, I don't know for what reason, what could be the political objective, because right now Israel is a liability for the Western world or for the America. So I think these two things could have some potential to change the situation. And I am putting like my bet on the second one, in which the Indonesia, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Pakistan are having a meeting with Trump. And I hope that they will be able to convince the Trump after this Qatar aggression and Qatar attack, because we have seen that the security architect of the Middle East has suddenly it's been changed. Now there is no immunity for any country, even for the countries
There are a lot
who
of changes
has the
happening,
Western
Shazia.
allies.
There is immunity for
Also,
anybody, and I think you couldn't be clearer under the current circumstances on the new methodologies that need to be employed, the new way that the world needs to move forward in order to bring peace in the region, because with Israel being emboldened by the US, this will not happen until and unless some strides are taken in the right direction. Stay with us. Bukhari Saab, long time coming, but lots of questions to ask you as well. What is the goal of A, recognizing Palestine as a state, and B, of talking of the two-state solution, if and until if they are not translated into some kind of tangible actions?
Well, it's early in the day, so we don't know for certain. We don't know exactly what will come out of it, but granting Palestine legal recognition then raises the question whether Palestine, the state of Palestine, whatever condition it's in, now has the legal basis to approach entities such as the International Court of Justice and other forums to press its case. Now, is that going to make any difference to conditions on the ground? Absolutely not, knowing Netanyahu and knowing his allies and friends on his extreme side. But at least it marks a kind of a departure from a Palestine which was kind of scattered all over to a position where, at least on paper, it's a legal entity. Now, the question is whether there'll be progress beyond that. I don't know, but at least the hope is there. And again, as I said to you earlier on about apartheid, dismantling of apartheid, and how the transition took place from the 80s till the mid-90s. Again, one cannot be certain if this situation, the situation in Palestine, is going to exactly replicate what happened in the case of South Africa, but at least from not too long ago, there is a case, and a case that we should consider worth reflecting upon, a case that might repeat itself for the future.
That might repeat itself, but that's a million-dollar question, whether it does or whether it does not, and how things move along with more and more countries finally waking up to the reality of the state of Palestine, and that there needs to be a two-state solution, and that all the mayhem, all the genocide, all the crimes against humanity that have been going on need to stop before it's way too late, because already a precedent as far as war crimes or genocide has already been established under this Israeli rule on the Palestinians, and of course they are trying to kind of extend it beyond Palestine as well. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the South Asian region. Now, when it comes to South Asia, the first thing now that comes to our mind, of course, is the tension between the United States of America and India, whether it be in the form of the H-1B visas, whose prices have increased dramatically, whether it be the other measures that the US has taken vis-a-vis India with the increase in the tariffs, whether it be the comments that Donald Trump has been putting out on his platforms as far as his relations or the US relations with India are concerned, are a lot of cause of concern as far as the Indian public, whether they be the Indian diaspora in the US is concerned or the Indian public in India is concerned. Whether it affects Narendra Modi or not, that we don't know. Maybe we'll see in the next couple of days. More in the following report.
In May 2025, India and Pakistan fought a brief but intense war that ended with a ceasefire announced by U.S. President Donald Trump on May 22nd. While Washington hailed the move as Trump's personal diplomatic victory, Pakistan welcomed the effort to prevent further escalation. New Delhi, however, dismissed the claim, marking the first visible crack in U.S.-India relations. Soon after the ceasefire, the United States imposed punitive tariffs on Indian exports, particularly targeting textiles and pharmaceuticals, slashing billions from India's trade revenues. Washington justified the move by pointing to India's continued purchase of discounted Russian oil, arguing that it boosted Moscow's economy and indirectly supported Russia's war effort in Ukraine. This was followed by a quiet downgrade in intelligence sharing, weakening a security partnership once presented as crucial against China. Then came the heaviest blow. Washington tightened H-1B visa rules, directly hitting Indian ITIND professionals, who make up nearly three-quarters of all visa holders in the U.S. For India's $245 billion outsourcing sector and its middle-class families, this was a severe financial setback. The latest standoff has laid bare the fragility of U.S.-India relations. Behind the rhetoric of strategic partnership, the reality is marked by mistrust, competing interests, and limits to cooperation. As both sides recalibrate their positions, the coming months will reveal whether this rift proves temporary or a turning point in the future of their ties.
We continue to be joined by Farhan Bukhari Sahab as well as Shazi Anwar Chima online to discuss this interesting development as far as the allies US and India is concerned. Farhan Bukhari Sahab, Donald Trump proposes $100,000 as far as the fees for the H-1B visa is concerned. And of course, everyone knows that India is impacted the most because 70 to 71% of these visas are given to Indian nationals. Then all the other, measures that have been taken, like the tariffs that have been increased to 50%, and there was also talk of even increasing it further beyond 50% as well. 283 billion sector of information technology in India that is considered one of its backbones is going to be severely impacted by the H-1B visas alone. Can this sector in India survive without the US approval?
Well, look, there are two parts to this, two possible answer to this question. One is specific to India. And on India, India has been struck a very heavy blow, no question about it. Work done over a few decades, in a sense, has been kind of unraveled. Two, how long will this be sustained? And by the way, I've seen some reports which say $100,000 a year.
Yes, it is $100,000 a year.
So just to keep that in perspective, $500,000 for say 5 years, beyond which opens the route to citizenship. So it's not an easy one, and the other question is whether this will in time change. I personally think that, look, some of the categories on which this would apply, especially doctors, because right now reportedly there's a significant shortage of internists in the United States. And it is possible that in time certain categories might be exempted from this heavy fee as opposed to others which would continue to be slapped with it. We have to see. So there's the domestic situation in the US, and then of course a heavy blow to the Indians, and the Indians have suffered, a few of them. The tariff, which is very high, 50%. And they see the US pressure on India seems to be ongoing, relentless, and doesn't seem to be ending, at least not in the foreseeable future.
Now, if it doesn't end in the foreseeable future, what could happen as far as the Indian economy is concerned? Will the Indian economy survive? Because this is what the Indian Prime Minister says. He asks his public in a recent address to focus now on local manufacturers. So is this what India is going to do? And is this what will sustain India?
At the very least, I think India will have to accept significant or a considerable slowing down of its economic growth rate. It would certainly have to accept the reality of foreign investment in India tapering off, going down. Those are the outcomes on which India will not be able to have any controls. But on the other hand, it's still a large enough economy, though it also faces some terrible challenges. We often do not realize that the size of poverty-stricken people in India is almost equal to Pakistan's entire population. Now that's a huge big number. So those are the realities that the Indians will have to cope with, and
All
those
right,
are
and we
going to
don't know
get.
how long those realities will sustain and how long these realities could further be distorted by Trump and his administration
Exactly.
in the coming days, weeks, and years as well. But of course, there are deliberate motives behind that. And speaking of motives, I'd like to understand, Shazia and Chima, the Trump administration has also taken another tough step. It has decided to withdraw its waiver on sanctions that were linked to Iran's Chabahar port. How does this US decision impact India?
It is going to impact India economically and diplomatically, both, because India has long interest in that Chabahar port, and they were working in collaboration with that. So now this is a big problem for them. So the only thing they can do, in my opinion, just admit that yes, Mr. Trump, you have brokered the ceasefire, and yes, the 7 Rafale were down. So then the problem will be solved. And also they have to manage the trade deficit, and they have to lower their own tariff toward the USA. So economy is not my strong suit. So I can only say that the Indian export to US is larger than the consumption which American products being consumed inside the India. So they have to also lower the tariffs, because there are a highest number of tariffs. India is the highest the number of tariffs inside the import inside the country, on the automobile, on the mobile phones, and all other imported things. So they have to find a balance, and they have to find the balance and navigate the situation realistically, not with the Jaishankar's laser eyes, because those laser eyes, they haven't worked. So they have to find a way in which they can have a face in front of their domestic population, and also they can minimize their diplomatic isolation, because their 11th year, or all 11 years, what they have do, they have just created a facade or a rhetoric. And the moment they that rhetoric got busted, the emperor is naked in front of everybody. So now they have to
That
find
is so
clothes
true.
for themselves, and also they have to somehow make Trump happy or comfortable.
All right, speaking of the political angle to all of this, we've seen the H-1B visas being increased. Consequently, we've seen the Chabahar port and the sanctions that had certain waivers are now being lifted as well, as far as India is concerned. Politically, how does this impact Narendra Modi, his government, his policies, and his so-called camaraderie with the US?
Everything is being questioned. Everything is being questioned by the opposition party, by Rahul Gandhi. He is even questioning the political will behind that attack, or Operation Sindoor, or whatever they have called it. So everything is being questioned. Their political gesture, their diplomatic moves, their stance that we can navigate between global south and global north. And also, if in the future Quad meeting Trump decided not to come, that is going to be the last nail in the coffin. So they are not welcome in the BRICS, and they are in the Quad to contain China. And if Trump decided not to visit India to attend the Quad meeting, that is going to be the last blow, because they are everywhere half-heartedly. They are not honest, either in the global south or the global north. They are not honest in the BRICS or SCO. A very senior diplomat M.K. Badakumar, he gave an interview and he said categorically that we are in the BRICS, and West has to be thankful to us, because we are the one who are stopping de-dollarization. So this is the venture of China and Russia. So we are in the BRICS, and West should be thankful to us. So they were in the Iran. They have relations with the Iran, and we have seen that what they have done to Iran. They have relation with Bangladesh, and they had relation with Nepal. So they have this bad habit of stabbing in the back, and not being honest, and not investing in relationship in the terms of time and the cash, or in the emotions. So in that case, they have seen in their operation, whatever they tried to impose upon us, They have seen the consequences that they are isolated, and the rhetoric they are selling to their domestic population that they are the fourth largest economy and their GDP and their purchasing power parity and all the figures and all these digits. Everything is now open, out in open, and everybody is questioning now Narendra Modi, that if Narendra Modi is going to be for next 5 years, what is going to be the future of India? The
So a lot of political turmoil, internal political turmoil also, that is going to continue within India as far as the whole situation is concerned. But you know, the fact also remains that there are so many different angles as far as these measures that the US has taken, that maybe it will take some time for the region and for India itself to understand, decipher the consequences of all of that. Farhan Bukhari Saab, when you look at all of these measures, from Chabahar to economy, to the statements that Donald Trump has been putting as far as India is concerned, and this is not the first statement that he has put. He has said many things, and of course started all with the Operation Sindoor and what ensued and how Pakistan responded, and how it showed its might, and then the whole situation politically or strategically also changed. How does Pakistan gain or stand to gain from the current tensions that exist between the US and India? A. B. Where does India stand if this whole imbroglio continues in the same vein?
To add to the matters on the table, such as Chabahar and other steps, let's not forget the controversy surrounding India's import of Russian oil, because
Yes.
that has been a very big.
Because it's crude oil, they refine it and then they sell it.
And then, and also on top of that, making good money out of it.
Yes.
On those sanctions, I believe there were 8 companies, shipping companies, which were sanctioned by the US because they were transporting oil. Look, for the future, as far as India's position is concerned, internally, domestically, it's very clear that Narendra Modi is trying to whip up a sense of nationalism. It's very difficult to gauge the direction of future Indian politics, where that's going to go. A lot depends on the future of his opponents. But I think what is very clear is that the era of Fly India or
Shining
India globally, that is gone for now.
All right. That is gone for now. Shahzay and Wachima, the era of Shining India has gone for now, but for how long in your point of view, if this continues in the same vein?
They are taking a paradigm shift, Umar. I have recently following their RSS chief. He is giving lectures to different universities and think tanks, to the intelligentsia, academia, and journalists. And they have taken what I have done an analysis of that, and I have published it as well. So they have, what are they doing now? They have taken a 180-degree shift, and now they are talking about the liberal democracy and categorically saying that to the followers that stop looking for the shivling in every mosque, and we do not believe in the caste system, and we do not believe in the shastras. Lokas are more important, and also another important thing is that we respect territorial integrity. And see, that was the case we were trying to build in front of the entire international community. That this is not the point that who is terrorist and who is not, because there is no definition even for terrorist in United Nations. It's
You
more
know, the
than
fact,
50
Shazia,
explanation
the
for the
fact
word
is
terrorist.
that this whole series of statements, measures taken by the US, that does not bode for India in a positive light in any way whatsoever, is going to be a game changer as far as South Asia is concerned and India itself. How India survives all of this, how India comes out of it, how it changes India is something that we will all be watching in the days and the weeks to come. Thank you very much, Shazia, to have joined us. It was a pleasure to have talked to you, as it is always. Let's come to our next segment, and that concerns the West. Now, as far as the West is concerned, there was an interesting development as far as Afghanistan is concerned. Now, the Trump administration has been trying to get hold of the Bagram air base that is present within Afghanistan. It is one of the biggest air bases, and when they left Afghanistan a couple of years back, it was left to the whims and mercy of the Taliban. And now the Afghan Taliban refused to give access to the US, although one of their ministers says that they still see US drones flying on overhead, and this was of course a statement that was clear and not ambiguous, but at the same time strong as far as the US monitoring of what we call Afghanistan is concerned. What will happen? Will the US eventually get access to the Bagram air base? Will Afghan interim government and its officials finally relent to what the US has been asking since these last few weeks? We continue to be joined by Farhan Bukhari Saab. He's our senior analyst in the studios. Farhan Saab, how realistic in your point of view is Donald Trump's demand to reclaim the Bagram air base when the Taliban have repeatedly, not once, many a times, emphasized that not a single meter of Afghan land can now be ceded to any country, including the US?
Donald Trump has a history of making statements which do not necessarily always translate into reality. And therefore, here as well, he's made this statement, we have to see it to believe it. I, for one, believe that effectively getting US boots on the ground in Afghanistan, in Bagram, is going to be an uphill struggle. Plus, in the last 4 years, since the United States withdrew from Afghanistan very abruptly, China has expanded its own footprint. So what will be the Chinese reaction to the US moving into Afghanistan in this way? That's the other element.
There's a trust element as well.
Of course, and the Chinese are already, smart as they are, they've already established multiple links with the Afghans that relate to trade, economic issues, primarily minerals in Afghanistan, because that's a big element in the Afghan prospective economy. So I think it's very early in the day. Trump has made this statement, but whether that will happen or not, actually getting his troops there to take positions, to go in as part of an agreement, then on the agreement itself, what will he concede?
Now, speaking of agreements, Farhan Saab, what's very interesting is the Doha agreement that was signed between or agreed upon between the US side and the Afghan side as well. Donald Trump threatens of serious consequences if they do not cede to the Bagram air base. But that brings us back to the Doha agreement, which Afghan interim government of the Taliban has been saying has specific clauses that do not give the right to the US or any other country to cede or to get access to the Bagram air base. Do you feel this is not an interference in Afghanistan's internal affairs? And if so, will there be also some kind of a middle ground where both countries will, accept each other's demands?
Look, as conditions stand right now, reaching a middle ground, I just find that very hard to believe, because they're already pulled apart. There's a great deal of polarization. The Afghans have claims on their side. By one account, I think there's $7 billion which the Afghans are claiming, which is held up by the US. What will happen to that money? Whether there's going to be another form of a payout to secure Bagram. All these questions remain very unanswered.
And all of these questions that remain unanswered is another question that I hope you will be able to answer. What is the strategic importance of Bagram Air Base under the current situation for the US?
Mainly China, because the size of the base, the facilities that we've heard of in the past, and even recently, US troops positioning themselves in Bagram could give them a variety of roles to monitor China from there, much closer to China, and more maybe in future, which is hard to predict.
How?
But whether it's going to happen or not, that's the big question. By the way, on this matter, as people discuss this, I would recommend to everyone to read about deep sea divers, and there are videos on this. Deep sea divers diving into the sea off the coast of Vietnam, just for fun, to collect parts of American heavy equipment, which the Americans dumped there when they withdrew in the 70s in a great big rush, because they didn't have enough space, enough capacity on their battleships to transport troops. So helicopters and other equipment was dumped off the coast of Vietnam. And today people, deep sea divers, go there just to collect some of these items, some of these souvenirs for fun's sake.
All right. Farhan Saab, the Afghan Acting Minister for Education, Habibullah Agha, in a speech on Paktia on Sunday, says, and I quote, the country's airspace is still under occupation and US drones patrol Afghanistan skies at night. However, neither you nor I have the means to stop that. How do you view this rare admission of the presence of US drones in Afghanistan's airspace by the Taliban? And what was the deeper meaning of an Afghan interim minister talking about this in a seminar on education?
As far as the deeper meaning is concerned, imagination can be unending, and I'm not going to speculate on that. But the Afghan Taliban do not have an air force and do not have a mechanism to protect their skies. So that gives open field to the US to fly drones, and the drone technology with the US today is very, very advanced, possibly the most advanced in the world today. So if that's happening, no surprise there.
All right, all right. Thank you very much, Farhan Bukhari Saab, to have joined us, to have given us your expert opinion on so many important issues that plague so many different regions of the world. And it's so interesting to see how things are developing across the world, for the better or for the worse. But there are developments that are happening, and developments that are happening very, very fast. Where those developments will lead to is something that we all want to see, and hope and pray that this will be shedding a good light on the future of humanity and not vice versa. Last story concerns the Central Asian region. Now, this historic city of Bukhara, if you have not visited in Uzbekistan, you need to, because it's beautiful. Now, it is long known for its Silk Road heritage. Now, this city has launched the Bukhara Biennale between the months of September and November this year. It has transformed completely into a cultural hub. There are artisans coming from so many dozens of countries that are showcasing their art, their designs, their traditions in Uzbekistan, that itself is a culturally rich country. The fact also that, as we know, the soft image or soft diplomacy is something that bridges nations, that bridges communities and countries, and that is what Uzbekistan is using through this biennale to bring so many different countries from across the world together, not only to better understand each other, but also to have a little viewpoint on what the other countries' arts or culture or heritage represent. That is extremely important under this day and age, when we see only fights or genocide or wars happening in different parts of the world. When you look at culture bringing countries together, and people understanding each other better, people-to-people contact is something that is of extreme value as far as diplomacy or diplomatic relations between any two countries are concerned. And under the current circumstances, we look forward to many such relationships developing during the course of this biennale that will continue till the month of November 2025. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's Beyond Borders. We have been trying to decipher the borders, go beyond the borders, explore a world where these borders do not exist, where these boundaries do not exist, bring you stories that matter under these changing times. We'll continue to do that in the days to come as well. Till then, stay tuned right here to Pakistan TV. Allah Hafiz.